It was an ordinary evening, and I was at home winding down after a long day of work. As a boiler repairman, my job was pretty routine, so when I received a call from a small hotel about a boiler malfunction, I thought it would be just another job. They urgently needed someone to fix it, and I agreed to help, hoping to get it sorted quickly and head home to my family. When I arrived at the hotel, it was far from the glamorous image you might associate with such places. It was a small, run-down establishment that had seen better days. The manager, an elderly man, greeted me and explained that the boiler was located in the basement. He seemed anxious, and his hands trembled as he handed me the rusty iron key to the basement door. Carrying my toolbox, I descended the creaky stairs into the dimly lit basement. The air was heavy with a musty smell, and I could hear the soft hum of a malfunctioning boiler in the distance. As I approached it, I noticed a dark, splotchy trail leading away from the machine. Something had leaked or spilled around it. My initial thought was that it was a plumbing issue, but as I got closer, I realized this was far from normal. The trail didn't seem to be water. It was much thicker. I knelt down to get a closer look and discovered it was a trail of blood, fresh and still slightly warm. My heart began to race as my eyes followed the trail further into the darkness. The trail of blood led me to a gruesome sight. There, in the dim light, lay a lifeless body. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled back, nearly falling over. My mind raced as I tried to process what I had stumbled upon. The body, which appeared to be that of a young woman, lay in a pool of crimson, her lifeless eyes staring up at the ceiling. In shock, I fumbled for my phone to call the police. As I waited for them to arrive, I couldn't help but glance around the basement. My heart pounded and my mind raced, wondering if the killer was still working in the shadows. Fear and dread wrapped themselves around me like a vice, and every creak, every distant sound sent shivers down my spine. The police arrived soon after, and I recounted what had transpired. They began their investigation, and I was questioned extensively. I told them I had no knowledge of how the woman ended up there. The authorities seemed to believe me, but their suspicions still hung in the air. The days that followed were filled with anxiety and dread. The hotel was shut down, and the investigation into the woman's death continued. Rumors about the murder in the basement swirled throughout the town. It was a chilling experience knowing that I had unwittingly stumbled upon a crime scene while simply trying to do my job. In the end, the police concluded that I had no involvement in the woman's death, and her murder remained unsolved. But that encounter in the hotel's basement haunted my nights, and I could never shake the eerie feeling that I had been in the presence of something truly horrifying.
As numerous establishments to ensure they met certain standards and maintained quality for their guests. It was a hotel inspector. My job required me to visit an unassuming night. When I arrived at the next hotel on my list, and the name Hillside Inn sounded rather picturesque. The air was heavy with a drizzling rain, casting a gloomy aura over the aging building that stood on the outskirts of town. The hillside had an unsettling history, known locally for a series of strange occurrences and the abrupt departure of a previous inspector who refused to return. Most unsettling of all was the guest room number 314. Some guests have reported eerie encounters within, and the room had become infamous in the hotel's history. My instructions were clear. I had to inspect every nook and cranny, including room 314. What could possibly be wrong with a hotel room, I thought. I would soon discover that some mysteries are best left unsolved. The hotel lobby was dimly lit, adorned with dusty, antique furniture, and the hushed whispers of guests echoed around. The receptionist handed me the key to room 314 with a peculiar smirk that sent shivers down my spine. The rain outside was now pouring heavily, casting eerie shadows in the narrow hallway as I approached the infamous door. Unlocking the door revealed a room that seemed ordinary at first glance. The bed was neatly made, the curtains were drawn, and the room was chillingly silent. It was as if the very air had a weight of its own. With a clipboard in hand, I began my inspection. Everything appeared routine until I reached the bathroom. Upon entering, I was greeted by a disconcerting sight. The bathroom mirror, usually reflecting the sink, was obscured by something unusual. In the fogged glass, the words, "Finally," had been etched. A shiver ran down my spine. It had been too quiet, and the air in the room felt dense and suffocating. Tentatively, I examined the rest of the bathroom, but nothing seemed out of place. I couldn't fathom what had left that message. As I moved back into the main room, the unease continued to grow. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was now alone. A chill crawled up my spine, and I turned to see an indistinct figure standing in the corner, partially obscured by the dimness of the room. Fear seized my heart as I realized that I was now alone in room 314. I stammered out a question. "Who are you?" The figure remained silent, its form shifting and wavering as if it were not entirely solid. Panic washed over me as I fumbled for the door, desperate to escape. The corridor outside the room was now in total darkness. My only source of light was my trembling flashlight, but its beam seemed feeble against the encroaching darkness. The echo of my own footsteps filled the narrow corridor as I fumbled my way towards the stairs. The air felt heavy, and a sinister presence loomed around every corner. Descending the stairwell, I reached the ground floor, but the eerie silence was disrupted by distant, unidentifiable whispers. Panic and dread surged as I realized that the whispers seemed to be getting closer. I rushed towards the lobby, but was met with a haunting sight. The once empty lobby was now filled with shadowy figures. Their eyes glowed with an eerie, ethereal light. The receptionist who had handed me the key earlier was among them, and she wore a malevolent grin that sent a shiver through my very core. The specters advanced with outstretched arms, their whispers growing louder, though their words remained incomprehensible. Without hesitation, I turned and fled through the lobby's exit, back into the drenching rain outside. The Hillside Inn loomed behind me, a sinister silhouette against the stormy night. I ran until I reached the nearest town, my heart pounding and my mind a whirlwind of fear. My chilling encounter at the Hillside Inn remains etched in my memory. Whether it was a nightmarish illusion or a reality beyond explanation, I know I will never forget the terror that lurked within those aging walls and the sinister figures in the darkness. There are some places where fear thrives, and the Hillside Inn is one of them.
It was one of those long, monotonous drives up north, and my son and I decided to break the journey by spending the night in a nondescript hotel on the highway. Exhausted, we just needed a place to rest and recharge for the remainder of the trip. What happened in that hotel room, though, was something we would carry with us for the rest of our lives. As we checked in, the hotel seemed just like any other roadside establishment. The fading neon sign buzzed in the evening air, casting a pale, eerie glow on the parking lot. The lobby was dimly lit and almost deserted, with an air of neglect that should have been our first warning. The receptionist, a young woman with tired eyes, assigned us a room on the second floor, room 213. The hallway leading to our room was eerily quiet. The low, flickering lights did little to dispel the sense of unease that was slowly settling in. My son, sensing my growing apprehension, clung to my side. The feeling was inexplicable, but I chalked it up to our fatigue, our vivid imagination, or maybe just the unnerving silence of the hotel. Upon entering room 213, our unease deepened. The room was shrouded in darkness, the curtains drawn tightly shut. The air inside was stifling, heavy with a musty odor that clung to the walls. We tried to open a window to let some fresh air in, but it was jammed, as if it hadn't been opened in years. As I fumbled with the window, I heard a sound that sent shivers down my spine, an almost imperceptible rustling, like whispers in the shadows. My son, too, seemed to sense that something wasn't right. We both exchanged nervous glances, but the fatigue of the road urged us to dismiss our fears. Tired and desperate for rest, we decided to freshen up. That's when we discovered something that turned our exhaustion into sheer dread. The bathroom door had a faint, eerie glow emanating from beneath, and when we pushed it open, the sight was like something out of a horror film. Inside the bathroom, the tiles were adorned with strange symbols and inscriptions. The mirror was covered in cryptic writings rendered in some dark substance. It was a scene of sheer madness. Someone or something had defiled this room with markings we couldn't comprehend. Panic gripped us. We knew we had to leave immediately. The eerie rustling grew louder, as if whispering malevolent secrets in the room. We grabbed our belongings and made a run for the door. As we exited room 213, the receptionist watched us with vacant eyes, like a sentinel guarding the gateway to a nightmarish world. The car was our sanctuary, our haven of safety. The engine roared to life, and we sped away from that nightmarish place, leaving room 213 and its cryptic symbols far behind. To this day, neither my son nor I can explain what we experienced that night in the hotel. It haunts our memories like a persistent nightmare, a chilling encounter with something beyond our understanding. The symbols, the rustling whispers, the inexplicable aura of dread. We have no answers, only questions that we're afraid to ask. In the darkness of that highway, as the miles roll by, my son and I clung to one another, finding solace in our shared experience. We continued our journey north, silent and contemplative, haunted by the encounter in room 213 and the unsettling knowledge that some horrors, though they defy explanation, remain very much